Hello, I'm Ed Rabyd, otherwise known as the Rabyd Atheist, a former pastor turned atheist, now compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Feel free to like or dislike the video as you see fit. Feel free to comment below. And I would appreciate it if you would take the time to subscribe to the channel and hit your notification bell for more content as it is released. Just a reminder that this channel is about education, and in particular education related to atheism, deconversion issues, as well as Bible and theology related to those issues, sticking with what I've experienced and some of my expertise. Occasionally I throw a little politics in there because I also have a political science degree, but most of the time I find politics boils down to another form of religion, which I don't make that statement lightly. But this is kind of a weekend Friday video, and so I'm addressing comments. Don't have a lot of comments this week. Of course, I only put out the one video on Bible Contradictions number 4. So I do apologize for that. I'm going to try to get 3 videos out a little bit more. So I have a couple comments from Freebird of Reason, one from last week's week-ending video, week 36 video, Cultic Leadership, and addressing my comments and having a correction. He says on that video, "Hey, just a thought on class in church. This was one of my reasonings during my last couple of years in church that caused my faith to be questioned. The fact that I could see a strong family name of 2 or 3 families. I started to realize that if God was calling people into his church, I should an even amount of different families from all areas. We all had the similar type of people. I could see that it was adding another family name. So not in the spirit of making my children go was the reason they were there. I had no right to do this, just as a man has no right to cut parts off an 8-year-old baby. I saw a documentary on this at the same time. God works in mysterious ways. This is that documentary of this barbaric religious act from the book I read every day suddenly became so clear. Thanks again. Keep up the good work." Well, thank you for that last comment. I get what you're getting at. I was talking to my therapist about this Wednesday. We were talking about tribalism and we were talking about being accepted. As a social species, human beings have this incredible desire to be accepted by the group. But we also, if there's a tug of war in human beings that's evolutionary and natural, it's this desire to be accepted by the group on one hand, but also to get what we want personally on the other. There's that selfish gene, if you will, that drive to be selfish. And I think that's probably the main tug of war in most of things involving individualism versus collectivism. Kind of falls in that camp. Collectivists say it's all about the group and humanity as a whole, and individuals say, yeah, screw that. It's all about the individual. And most people probably dwell in the realm in between somewhere. As a classical liberal libertarian, I dwell more on the individualist side and just creating rules so that when people do engage each other, it's fair and on a level playing field. And that's pretty much it. And protection for the group as a whole, internally and externally. And that's pretty much it. But the issue at hand when it comes to religion and tribalism, I think religion taps into this tribalistic nature we have to the point that we will indeed do ritualistic things to our children. Okay, for instance, I think circumcision is actually a really good example. Nowhere else but in religion would you find justification to cut off the foreskin of a young baby who's 8 days old, who has no say in the matter whatsoever. If somebody, it's amazing to me that we will do these things to our children. Oh, they won't remember it, and it doesn't matter. It's their body, okay? And you're violating that and not giving them a choice about it. What thing does that? If I sit down rationally, I would have to say, well, this foreskin thing evolved for a reason, and there is a reason for it. It's a protection, it's a covering. It also, for a man, contains a large amount of the sexual pleasure sensors. So, you're robbing that from a young man when you circumcise him. So it's kind of one of those things where and I know I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't know the full details of everything that a foreskin does. It can be problematic. It's one of the places that gets infected. I get it. But at the same time, also, once you get a young man to take care of it, it usually isn't a problem. So it's kind of weird that people take a look at that. But really, only in religion would we get the idea that we should cut that off. I mean, some other religions get the idea of cutting off the clitoris of a female. And, once they start menstruating, and it's like, okay, what for? Oh, well, that's a pleasure center. That's something that needs to be removed so that her baby making that's all it's about is, having sex becomes purely about being a baby factory, not any kind of pleasure for her as a person. Such an idea is abhorrent in the West, okay, but we still chop off the ends of penises on little baby boys and don't consider that barbaric, and we allow for it. And it's only religion that would cause you to think that that's okay, that's all right. The medical community has been very divided upon male circumcision for a long time, and a lot of people are saying, well, it has some health benefits. Maybe yes, maybe no. I think the information on that is very dated, but the point is, it's their body. It's not your choice to make. Okay, is what I'm saying. As an atheist, I would say they have ownership of their body. Even as a baby, you shouldn't be screwing with it unless you have to. Like if it's a heart surgery thing, yeah, I can see that. If the baby's going to die, we need to do something to life save it. But this isn't life-saving. This is altering some part of their body because of religious reasons. And I do think that that's the only way that's possible is in a kind of tribalistic religious sense where people are so dominated about their beliefs and their desire to fit in that they will do anything to appease that group, including cut the ends off the penises of their baby children, baby boys. And I think that's kind of sick when you really think about the power of religion on that. This is why I'm an anti-theist, because there's stuff that religion does that needs to stop. And this is one of them. It's just one of many. But I get you. Because it's tribalistic, I think religion, it's interesting. In every one of my churches, I found that there were similar occupations. My first church was pretty blue collar. I didn't have a lot of white collar people in it, no doctors, nurses, things like that. My second church was pretty much the same, although I had what I would call techies in it. There were some technical people that really understood electronics and computers and things like that. I had several of those. My last church had more professionals in it. I had an inordinate amount of police officers or former police officers, just former cops, paramedics, people that did that kind of work. So I don't know if that's actually accidental. I think there's a similarity of things. The one thing they probably all shared was their belief in Jesus, but I'm going to tell you, probably my last church was the most diverse as far as political opinion, which is why I didn't allow political discussions in my church, because I knew they'd just be a pain in the ass. So, but at the same time, you end up realizing that the reason people are often together has nothing to do with the religious aspects. It has to do with the fact that they're very similar to each other. But yeah, there's very barbaric things that are only accomplished in religious tribalism. And you bring up a good point. 3 days ago, my Bible contradiction video number 4, God is Love. Part 1 is an overview. This beautiful world has so much natural suffering. Tigers waiting for the birth of another male. As the birth is taking place, the baby is pulled out and eaten in front of the mother. If you're making excuses for a loving God, watch Cruel Nature on YouTube. The jewel wasp does not do what it does from the sin of man. It will make a zombie out of a cockroach, and it will be eaten alive. Symbiotic relationship is the most messed up part of God's design. Eating things alive can't be love. If it is, it can't be in God's image. I find this very cruel and unloving, but as I know it's evolution, it truly makes sense. I would not give my children a book to tell them I love them and hide. Take care. Okay, the last part I really found interesting as a comment. I would not give my children a book that says I love them and hide. You're right. because this is about the hiddenness of God, and this is one of the great problems with the idea of God is he's so hidden, and that's probably because he's imaginary. So what you end up, the reason you see that is people need, well, he's everywhere or he's whatever. They come up with a theological reason for why God would hide. But it seems if God did love me and wants a relationship with me, he would take a lot of initiative in that relationship, seeing he's the perfect one. If he really did love me, he would be around all the time. You know, couples that say their I do's at the altar and then never see each other again aren't going to stay married very long. And this, I think, is true. You know, I just don't see the hiddenness of God as one of the biggest problems with God, because there's no difference between the hidden God and an imaginary God. And that's some things that theists don't want to deal with. That, you know, I mean, one of my favorite things is, you know, well, I believe in Jesus. And I said, well, I believe in Odin. Well, that's silly. Why? You just said something equally provable. Okay, yeah. I mean, I have literature that has Odin in it. You have literature that has Jesus of Nazareth in it. They're equally problematic. Okay, you know, I have no evidence for mine, and you have really no evidence for yours. Well, yeah, but I said, yeah, you know, I get it. You know, this is why I do the tall tale of Jesus, to kind of answer some of these questions about these things. You know, that I want to see people, you know, do those things. But the hiddenness of God is a big issue. You know, you got to have some proof that your God exists. I'm going to tell you straight, when it comes to suffering, suffering bothered me a lot until I realized it's part of nature. And this is not being like a Christian saying suffering makes you closer to God. I think suffering is something you fight, okay, and you should fight. But you're right, symbiotic relationships where the host basically becomes just a meat shield and meat food, that seems to be a very cruel part of it's God's design. Well, it's part of the fall of man. Well, what did they do before? Okay. I mean, what did this animal do before the fall? How did it make it? I mean, parasites are everywhere. I mean, parasitic relationships are probably more normal than non-ones in the natural world. And one form of life living off another. I probably literally as a human being have parasites inside my body that live off of my life. Okay. Some of which, if I didn't have them and they weren't passed on to me from by my parents when, you know, they did all when I was born, I wouldn't be able to live. Okay. This becomes problematic, has been, you know, so you need these bacteria, you need these viruses, you need this stuff. Some of our cell structure is from parasitical relationships, you know, various things that have gotten in there. The point is this: if it's God's design, it's a pretty fucked up design. This is one of the things that I began to realize as I was approaching more and more atheism. I began to realize as I looked at the world that nature is very cruel. And this is why sometimes I get in trouble with some atheists that are like vegetarians. You know, they get all teary-eyed about, well, those animals could grow up to be like us and be sentient and everything else. And I'm like, yeah, so could the plants, but you eat those. It says you're picking the part of animal life that you have greater empathy for than others, and you'll eat the one you have less empathy for and preserve the one that you have more empathy for. This is, I fail to see the difference. Everything in life exists by consuming other life. That's just true. And it doesn't matter what kind of life it is. In order for you to survive and continue, you have to consume other things that once were alive and use their energy to keep yourself going. That's true regardless of what you eat. So there's very few dead things that we eat, okay, that are truly dead, or rocks or whatever, salt maybe, but it's not good for us. So it's kind of, you know, my point is this. I began to see the beauty not in the suffering of the natural world, but how the world works with suffering in it. And I wish it didn't exist. I wish it wasn't necessary, but I think sometimes it is. I mean, you know, you bring up a good natural, the jewel wasp literally takes over its host, the cockroach. The cockroach really has no mind of its own. The jewel wasp makes it do whatever it wants it to do in order to survive. And then slowly eats that cockroach alive from the inside. I can't imagine anything more cruel. And if that's God's design, yeah, bullshit. Tigers do indeed wait for like other animals to give birth. And if they have multiple babies, that tiger will literally snatch up that first baby and eat it in front of the mother while the mother is giving birth to another one. I can't imagine something more cruel than that. Why would you design it that way? That just seems kind of bloody and messy. If this is the designer God that you're looking for, he's pretty much a cruel son of a bitch. However, in the context of evolution, this is what people have done to survive. This is what organisms have done to survive. And survival is enough. People say, I want to survive and thrive. I think live long and prosper is a pretty good motto. Thank you, Dr. Spock. Thank you, Mr. Spock, from the old Star Trek series. It's just one of those things that you just begin to accept. As an atheist, I have come to accept that my life will end permanently. And along the way, I'm probably going to have some suffering. And I'm going to fight that. I'm going to work against it. I'm going to try to get as long and healthy a life as I possibly can because I only get one. And it makes me work harder knowing that. So I don't get a second chance or a new body or any of that crap. So, that's all nice wishful thinking, but there's no proof for it. And so it's pie in the sky by and by, quite frankly. And, I used to make fun of that statement, but now I understand it. It really is a promise with no evidence so that you will go and do other things. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how people can look at some. It's funny when people want to talk about the design of God and nature, they only look at things that are pretty or beautiful or make sense. When you start looking to the ugly parts of nature, yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, that seems to be a pretty fucked up design sometimes. But Woodrow Rodriguez, hello, enjoying your videos. Have you considered using shamos.com to help your videos rank better? I've never heard of that before. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. It brings up the issue of the channel, what I'm trying to do. I am really working hard to be true to what I want to do, at the same time grow the channel. Some people have suggested, that I have a good voice for doing other things like podcasting and stuff like that. And I get all that. So I do have this understanding that I could be doing other things, but it's just a time issue. So yeah, I'm going to look at different ways to get my videos to rank higher. It's just a question of how to do it. And it's something I have to work on. There's a lot of technical things that I just either haven't had the motivation or haven't had the time to work on. And there's going to have to come a day of reckoning. I don't know if I ever switch careers from what I'm doing now, I may just take a couple weeks off in between and really work on some stuff that I need to work on and get done. So that's kind of where I'm at. But yes, thanks for the recommendation. I'll take a look at it when I have time and see if that'll work for me. And that is all the comments this week. I probably would have had a little bit more if I'd done another second video. I'll try to get a couple of videos out this week, but my schedule is really whacked out this coming week. So, some of them might appear to be rushed. And I may just drop a video on Thursday instead of Wednesday. So just be advised by that. And hopefully I can convince you to be a rabid atheist like myself. In the meantime, this is Ed Rabyd, also known as a Rabid Atheist, signing off and wishing you a good day.